Hey everyone, before I get started, I just want to remind you that if you like my content, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and then join the Militia Man and Crew Patreon community by clicking the link in the caption. Hey, good evening everybody. It's Friday night and the Central Bank of Iraq has been talking a little bit. So I just want to say thank you for everybody that's been showing up to all of our videos. I appreciate it. I know that there's been a lot of differing opinions out there about what's going on. But look, all I try to do is give you the data that comes from the sources that we have, we provide. And I think that we do a pretty good job of trying to go over those things. Remember that it isn't just my opinions, it's a lot of opinions from all kinds of people around the world, and those opinions have experience, right? And so we go through a little bit of these articles because a lot of times these articles are really difficult because of the translation software programs. They come up and they're varied. You can have an article specifically like from the central bank, for instance, and you might be using your specific software to where that it comes up and it reads this way. And then ours, or we have many, okay, that come up slightly different. And that's why we publish them sometimes. We do publish articles sometimes 3 times or 2 times because they do vary in style, they vary in content, and they vary between news sources. So don't let that get to you, okay? It's just that the analytical part of it is we do the best that we can, and we give you the information because we believe that we've been around long enough to know that certain people, certain news agencies have varied styles, quality, and some of them are just downright wrong. But ultimately, we try to find the best, and our Samson Newshound is phenomenal, and we have others that are in our room that help provide stuff that we go over as well, because they're kind enough to say, hey, we haven't seen this yet, take a look at it. And to those that do that, we thank you for allowing us to be able to go over that stuff before you post on our forum. But that's a sidebar, but thank you very, very much. But anyway, this particular article is fascinating because it says the central bank announces the imminent issuance of decisions to support the Iraqi dinar. So the central bank has basically stated that they've made decisions to support the Iraqi dinar. It says today, Friday, the Central Bank of Iraq revealed anticipated measures and decisions to support the dinar and maintain its strength against other currencies and other measures that will positively affect the exchange rate. While they have been indicating that it has taken measures specifically in the field of what? Gradually ending this electronic platform. Everybody needs to be careful with that. And Wally, you need to be careful too. So anyway, the bottom line is the electronic platform is that we all have been told that the Central Bank of Iraq was going to do some things differently. They were going to leave that dollar exchange rate market. In other words, they're going to leave that to these auctions effectively to the not the central banks, but the banks and the correspondent banks around the world, bank to bank. I think you guys remember one of our guests in the past frequently, but one of his key components was that getting bank to correspondent bank was the key focus of the Central Bank of Iraq. And what we've seen, that's taking place. And let's see, it says the Assistant Director General of the Investment Department at the Central Bank of Iraq, it says that the department of that central bank will monitor and follow up on all banks and customer complaints that are received if the banks are forced to convert customer accounts to the US dollar. So what we're going to find in this article is a lot of stuff to unpackage. So if you let me get through it, then I'll give you some stuff that I wrote today, and I put it on our Patreon site so you can read it. My opinion, you can print it if you want. But the bottom line is that it's not an easy article to read. But here it goes. It says that the central bank will monitor and follow up on all banks and customer complaints that are received if the banks are forced to convert customer accounts to the US dollar. And he's stressing that The issue is easy to follow. It will be monitored, and banks that do not comply with this decision will be held accountable. He goes on and adds that the decision that will follow it in the coming days are all in the interest of supporting the Iraqi dinar and increasing confidence in it. So again, the Central Bank of Iraq is going to be leaving the banking transfers, the money transfers in foreign currencies, internally, externally, to the banks outside of the central bank. The central bank is going to be the decision makers, their supervisory position of all the banks. They will probably supply bulk currency when they need it to the banks, foreign and domestic, abroad effectively, right? So that the banks have their balances set up. And they already did that. We talked about the euro, the dirham, the yuan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so what we're going to find here is that they're going to go on to tell you some more things, and even they're going to state things like this, that this gentleman basically says that in the coming days there will be more measures in the field of meeting all the needs of the market and supporting the Iraqi dinar and maintaining its strength against other currencies. And he's coming out and saying, it says the central bank, as part of its new procedures, prevented banks from automatically converting customer accounts in dollar currencies to the Iraqi dinar. Without the customer's consent, customers were allowed to open accounts in different currencies. And then he goes on to say, what is new in updating the procedures is that it allowed companies that have contracts with the state to receive their incoming transfers, including worker salaries, as well as ongoing contracts for grants and loans in accordance with the Council of Ministers. And then he goes on and adds that the point is also in this new decision, okay? It is to allow banks to agree with their customers to bring their incoming remittances in cash to Iraq. So be careful. That's talking about what we believe is that you do a transaction in the euro, you buy it in euros, and then you have that cash, that euro cash, bring it home into Iraq. And what are they going to do? You're going to convert it into dinars, just as you would if you were going to buy something in Eastern Europe or the European Union, for instance, and you need to pay for the items in the euro. You'll take your dinar and convert it to the euro prior to leaving the shore. Okay, and that's big, but it doesn't say it's going to do it today. They said it's going to be coming soon. It's going to be coming in the next few days. They don't say in coming weeks. They don't say in the coming months. So we'll get back to that here shortly, right? He goes on and says that these measures will positively affect the exchange rate in the market, and it will increase the supply of the dollar. Well, when you increase the supply of the dollar, you do a couple of different things. Usually, when you have a supply rise of a dollar in certain circumstances, we have too many, price comes down. But in this case, that's possible. But in also what it does is those dollars that you bring in, for instance, if you're selling oil onto the market denominated in dollars, those dollars come back into the country as reserves. People get paid. And while the dollar gets into the reserves, and if necessary, all those dollars that come into the reserves to those companies that maybe needed that will turn that into dinar, and then eventually they'll do the same thing for their other transactions. Anyway, so they keep going on to, it says that the measures will positively affect, will increase the supply of the dollar, contribute to serving and supporting important sectors in the economy, including the exporting sectors, and the sector of companies operating in the government field and the field of infrastructure, development, strategic projects, in addition to supporting community organizations. That's basically talking about the 23, 24, 25 budget. That's an investment budget. That's what it's for. Okay, so all the monies that they come in, they're not going to be issuing that out again in the dinar. The dinar is going to be used for commercial transactions within the country. And that's where the confidence is going to come in. Okay, so he goes on to say that Mamdani contributes to the humanitarian charitable field in Iraq. It goes on and says that this al-Mamdani explains that the main goal behind this update or these instructions is to expand the largest possible segments to access the cash dollar by meeting its current needs for the dollar. As these instructions expanded the number of entities benefiting from the cash dollar, including civil society organizations, and these measures supported an important segment in the economy. They are the exporters sector. That's an investment side. If you're going to be a rentier economy based on only oil, you're not, that stuff's not going to happen. When they go to an exporter style, if they have agriculture and tourism and construction, reconstruction, all those different things that we just talked about, infrastructure development, right? That's what they're going to be using to be able to facilitate that trade. It's amazing circumstance that what they're doing is bring in your foreign currencies, we'll put those into our reserves, and then exchange those for the currency of the country. But there again, when you get that currency, right, in dinar, and if they change the exchange rate, that money eventually will do the exact same thing. They will take that currency, pair it with other currencies prior to the transaction. So it goes on here and says that the percentage of remittances received as a result of these exports and received in cash, he goes, it's pushing, I think, 40%. It says the decision clearly specified the mechanisms for its implementation by banks and focus on the issue of incoming transfers, as it allows some groups to receive the incoming transfers in cash. Okay, they say that the decision relates to incoming transfers and not the cash sales of dollars to travelers, as cash sales to travelers will continue as this is the case now. Thus, it will reflect positively on the exchange rate in the coming days. There you have it, in the coming days. Well, obviously, what we're talking about is legal trade, not illegal trade, not the parallel market. They're not going to need to do that. They've already responded to us in a way that suggests that they did do currency swaps. They populated the correspondent banks, over 40 or more, right? And that means that they're ready to be able to do the trade. So effectively, the banks and correspondent banks will take over the process of the Central Bank of Iraq. The Central Bank of Iraq will have no need to do auctions, and therefore there will be less need specifically in the country for commercial trade outside of their own currency. And we're going to see how that plays out. He says that there are no restrictions. Remind you, they said in the coming days, not the coming weeks, not the coming months. That's what they're telling us. It says, he stresses this, there are no restrictions applied to banks in the field of money transfers because there are procedures in the field of gradually ending the Central Bank of Iraq platform by supporting interest to open accounts in foreign banks abroad, and the role of the central bank is limited to enhancing these balances and following up on operations, the transfers. So there it says specifically what I just told you is that the central bank will leave that electronic platform because they don't need to be there, because the correspondent banks have the ability to do what? They've been opening accounts. They've been able to do transfers. The central bank populates those banks when they need the money, and they're going to be a supervisor to make sure that and monitor that people aren't doing their instructions incorrectly. And that's how we're seeing this. He goes on and says in conclusion, he says there are no restrictions on money transfers in different currencies within the banking system in foreign currencies, but this decision relates to the cash dollar or the cash withdrawal. So what I'm going to tell you is what I wrote today in my Patreon room, and bear with me, it is just because it's just my opinion. So understand that you may have differing opinions of it, of course. Very complex article, not written the best, but if you have the context of what the central bank is going and has been doing, is that the central bank needed to separate themselves, if you will, from the banks and correspondent banks, and then be able to do those transfers. So whenever money comes in foreign currency, it comes into the foreign exchange basket of Iraq, for instance, and then they will use the dinar as the sole provider of the future transactions in the commercial realm within the country. So they take in the euro, they convert it to the dinar. Then when Iraq decides to sell outside the country to move or buy items from overseas, they'll take and convert their new dinar, right, into those foreign currencies, because they're not going to be able to do back to the budget, 23, 24, 25 budget, which is a law, okay? It's important to know that. It was in June, and it's a law, so therefore they need to act on that law. And they haven't amended it, they haven't changed it, and they haven't acted on it the way that we expect, as in spending. So anyway, I say that here we have the central bank telling us that they're leaving the electronic platform. Why? Why would they do that? Well, they've opened the platform up to the banks and correspondent banks abroad to do transfers that are necessary. The central bank is to be a supervisory position now. We went over that. It's now a bank to correspondent banks. It's now bank to correspondent banks and others to do the transfers for trade with that there are legal restrictions and in place that the platform will have to abide by. Thus, with the new procedures in place, the dollar cash issue is going to change in the dinar's favor. That's what's expected. So there is that expectation that the confidence in the Iraqi dinar is going to be stronger in the coming days for the system to work in the dinar's favor. We all know that al-Sudani said that, be careful, the dinar is going to be stronger than the dollar for this to work. I believe he's right. I think that's going to be the case. I think Al-Alaq from the Central Bank of Governor, he said the project to delete the zeros still exists. Don't forget those things. Don't forget, al-Sudani in the UN Assembly meeting said that the Iraq dinar, or Iraq, was going to be effectively a savior for what? The international global financial system. Who was involved? JP Morgan, right? We have some new things that are coming out that you probably haven't figured out yet or haven't seen publicly, but it's definitely public. JP Morgan, BlackRock, many different entities are working towards new ETFs. Not uncommon, but they're doing it now. And who is doing some of the largest trading or banking portions of the dollar and in Iraq on the Buna platform? Who was that? JP Morgan. Got to think outside the box a little bit, folks, because things are getting really good. That was just a sidebar. It says basically the new procedures that are going to be in place with the dollar cash issue is going to change the dinars in their favor. As I said, there's expected that the confidence in the Iraq dinar is going to be stronger in the coming days for the system to work in the dinar's favor, as the dinar will not be leaving Iraq. That's what, in my opinion, right? Because again, currency is going to come in and go to the reserves. People are going to get paid in the country, dinars, right? They sit back. Whenever they're ready to do transaction again, they'll use those stronger dinar and they'll buy those currencies and they'll ship those currencies across the globe. So as for the dollar being used for legal reasons, that's not going to change. We talked about that. The move to get Iraq more export oriented will allow for remittances to be done in equivalent currencies and converted to the dinar. As I've said, the dollars or other currencies will go into Iraq's foreign reserves and used for future transactions. I went over that. It says Iraq is now to be in control of all currencies that have been coming in to support the value of the dinar. So effectively, everyone, if you have euros or if you have the yuan, bring it in, convert it to dinar. That's what you do, right? But so this whole system, being that it's with an investment budget, it's just not going to work at 1310. They don't have enough dinar to do that. And that's not the whole project. The project was to delete the zeros off the exchange rate, okay? Once they have done that, they've applied the real effective exchange rate, they're going to have to do things differently. And the world knows that. WTO knows that. The Bank of International Settlements knows it. The IMF knows it. Everybody does. The U.S. Treasury, the U.S. Fed. Everybody seems to be the ones that are knowing it, but they just haven't quite done it yet, or are they actually physically working to finish a process that is highly complex? And that's where my opinion is that it's far beyond most people's comprehension on just how complex this process is. So basically here it says, in my view, as I wrote, this article is about the investment side of the budget, which it is, projects, the development road project. You just can't build highways, roads, gas stations, apartments, housing, units. You got to have something to pay for it all. We all know that in 2019 and to the fore is that China has had big contracts of and understandings to build thousands of schools. All of that stuff is coming from somewhere. Okay, it's got to come from somewhere, but it's coming from what? It's commodity prices, which is what? Oil. So all this different hyperbole about we're not going to use oil anymore. They got a 20-year contract for oil for 100,000 barrels a day. That type of thing, you got to look at it as a standpoint as like, wow, they're really going to rebuild this country, and it's going to take a lot of effort, a lot of energy. Anyone that thinks it's not good, you got to really study it a little bit better. It's going to be phenomenal because, you know, China isn't the only country that's in Iraq. Even though that some of the American companies have left, it doesn't mean that we don't have interest there. Trust me on that one. And it goes on to say that, like I said, this article is about the investment side of the budget, and that it has been in law since June, middle of June 2023. And so far, look, being that it's in law, there's no stopping it. It's a law. Again, in my opinion, and I think a lot of other people's opinions, Iraq will have to abide by the IMF Article 8 compliance obligations, and they are showing that they are by ceasing the multi-currency practices. And how do we know that? They've totally said they're going to cease using multi-currencies. Okay? Everything, when you go to the grocery store, you pay your bills, whether it's the government, whether it's your phone bill, inside the country, you're going to be doing it in dinar. You're not going to be using the dollar. You're not going to use the yuan or, you know, the yen or any of those things. You're going to be using a one currency country, which is a multi-currency practice. If you use more, and that's on the IMF, I believe it's a part of the Article 4 consultations that may show up here at any time because it's been about a year, and also reflective in that the multi-currency practices in Article 8 are applicable. So take a peek at those. You guys can look them up, and hope you guys enjoyed what I had to say. It's kind of a short, sweet, and fast, but the truth is that the Central Bank of Iraq is giving out instructions for what they're doing and how they're doing it. As complex as it might be, it might sound, I would highly suggest that everybody go to the central bank's website, read the central bank announces the imminent issuance of decisions to support the Iraqi dinar, and focus in, take your time, do your research, think about it, because it's not easy, and that's where I think a lot of our experience comes from. I've been doing this since about 2010, about 14 years, and we've seen a lot of different people come and go, but when specific things line up with the largest entities in the world, like I said, the World Bank, the Bank of International Settlements, the Central Bank of Iraq, the IMF, WTO, when we see all this in writing and in print, we can see from the past to see how far they've come. And at this stage of the game, with having the 2023 budget, 2024 budget, 2025 budget, them not having spent the money yet for the salaries, them not having paid for the projects yet or exposed that to you yet, I think you should be pretty excited, because I know I am. All right, so we'll talk to you guys soon. And if you like my content, again, hit that like button. Please subscribe. And if you like the content, to keep it going before, even and after, hey, we have the Venmo, the Zelle, and we also have PayPal to help us out. So thank you very much. Once again, guys, don't forget to hit that like button if you like this content, subscribe to the channel, or join us at the Militia Man and Crew Patreon community for even more exclusive content. You can also donate to this channel by hitting the links in the banner to help keep this page up and running. Your generous support is greatly appreciated, as always. Much, much appreciated. Thank you so much, and have a great day.